what I'm going to talk about is some of the basics, fundamentals really, of business that loads of people sadly miss out on and seem to forget. So the topic is called getting paid on time, but there's actually 3 or 4 component parts to that. The first part is, who's heard of standard terms and conditions of business? Everybody's seen contracts, standard terms, but it's legal mumbo jumbo to many people. And the reason it's like that is because they don't fully understand the way to use terms and conditions effectively. So what I'm going to do is give you a very quick run through of some of the real fundamentals and basics of terms and conditions of business. The first thing to know is that if you have terms and conditions of business, you need to understand their legal relevance to the way that you work. What they are, in fact, is the basis of the contract that you form with your clients. A contract is only formed when 3 things exist. The first is that somebody has to offer to do something, somebody else must accept it on the same terms. In other words, if I offer to buy 1,500 green widgets for £1 each, and my supplier comes back and says, I can give you blue ones, we don't have an offer and acceptance because the terms of the offer and the acceptance are different. So the offer and the acceptance must be identical. Secondly, there must be something called consideration, and consideration is money or goods or services changing hands. It can't simply be for free. And thirdly, and sometimes overlooked, is the intention to create a legal relationship. You must have done this with the intent of going into business with someone. Now, I come across thousands and thousands of sets of terms and conditions of business which range from the sublime to the ridiculous. Some have been cut and pasted from other people's terms that they've had in. They've been Googled and they've downloaded some and they've mixed them up with others, and frankly they just don't make sense. The terms and conditions that you communicate before your client accepts your terms bind the contract. At the moment acceptance is granted or given, you can't then change the contract. Practical example of this, I see lots of people send out invoices and on the bottom of it it says goods or hours until paid for, or if you don't pay within 14 days we will charge you interest, etc. That is information communicated to the other side after offer and acceptance. So in other words, it does not bind the contract. It has no relevancy to the contract. So it's important that any and all terms that you want to be included in a contract must be set out before that contract is sent to the other side. Very, very important. The battle of the forms is an interesting one. What this means is it's a phrase used where you get into a buying cycle, and I know we've got people here from the local authority, they're the classic exponents of this, where you send in a response to, say, a tender, and the tender will set out the terms upon which you will do business. So you send in your quote, and it has your terms and conditions on the back, and they say, that's great, you've been accepted, and they send you an order confirmation. And the order confirmation neatly reincorporates their terms and conditions. And so you end up ping-ponging forms and paperwork backwards and forwards, and it's called the battle of the forms. And the best analogy I could find was kind of the Roman tortoise. It's really simple, it's very robust, and it's almost impregnable to attack. So if you've got your paperwork right, you've got your terms properly drafted, and more importantly you've been properly trained in how to use them and implement them, you'll be impenetrable. If you mess that up, if there's a chink in your armour because the form's wrong, you haven't sent something out in the right order, you could be in a world of trouble. So organisation is the key to this. I'm not going to prattle on particularly about terms and conditions in any great detail. Suffice to say, you need to get some and have professional advice. But e-commerce is a bit of a hot topic really. Everybody's trying to do business on the web, us included. But it throws up 1 or 2 interesting vagaries for terms and conditions. The first is the time and place of the contract. Now, that might not be desperately important to some people, but for others it's vital. Where is a contract formed if you do business on the internet? Is it where you are, or is it perhaps in the other country where the other party is if you're doing cross-border transactions. What is the time of the contract? That might be important for performance of particular obligations. Is it the time where you are in your time zone? Is it where the recipient is? Is it the time at which you acknowledge the contract? All of these things need to be considered and defined. Automatically incorporating your written terms and conditions into online contracts. Most people do it, one or two don't. I've seen one or two clients come to us with very painful experiences where they haven't been able to include the terms and conditions online, and they found that they really have none, effectively. And which law will govern it? You know, is it law of England because that's where I am, or is it because my client's in Colorado that's where the contract will be governed? Things that really don't usually enter into a paper transaction become vital in e-commerce. And again, it's a topic that's very complex, and you should get some professional advice or guidance about it rather than just kind of muddling along. Knowing it and doing it are two different things. Lots of clients get the terms, they go to their solicitor, they pay a lot of money, they get the terms. They decide the receptionist is going to become the credit manager because she's got a bit of spare time and she can ring people up, and they send her on a half-day training course, and they believe that that's it, we know how to do it. The reality of it is, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. This is one of my favourite analogies for this, because at the end of the day, when all's said and done, you go to kiss it, it's still a pig. So you can dress it up and say, oh, I've got the training, I've been to the lawyer, I've done all this, I've spent the money, but if you don't really know how to dress it up and use it, a horror situation could easily await.